Hey, Total West Day, what do you think of that video I put out? The one that was Linux does what Win don't.
Uh, it was very traumatic, and I'm still taking those pills. Thank you.
What's up? Anyway, this is going to be a video rebuttal, a video response to LinuxSpatry, to Spatry's Cup of Linux, and he's been begging me to do all right already from his upload on why what Linux does and Windows can't. Translated, why Linux is the best and Windows sucks. Just kidding. Anyway, he actually dared me to call this video why Spatry's video on Linux is the best and why that's horse stable or horse doo-doo or something like that. No, I would never. Me and Spatry are good podcast friends from the Sunday Night News and Nonsense Report podcast, and I would never entitle a video that way. I may call it something like why his video sucks, but I would never call it the other way. I'm just kidding, Spatry. I'm just kidding. By the way, thank you for the Father's Day, Happy Father's Day notice or message that you gave me. It's greatly appreciated. Thank you, sir. Getting back to this, so this is my video response. And in all seriousness, I really didn't know what to title this. I suppose I could reverse it. You know, what Windows does and Linux can't. I don't know. You know what? Maybe something like, you know, why Windows tops and Linux drops. Maybe I'll call it that. But let's get to some of the highlights of his video. I thought about just playing it and let you guys listen to it as I comment on it. But you know, his video is 13 minutes. I'll post a link. I will have it linked below. Definitely take a look at it. A lot of good stuff there. But I don't think it was necessary for me to comment as we go. I wrote down some of the highlights, and if I missed anything, I do apologize. But let's get to it. Now, these are some of the highlights, and I will give a score of 1 for each OS that I think wins on that particular feature or point of topic or whatever. All right, viruses. I'll give a point to Linux, even though I believe that Windows, at least Windows 7 is what I have, can be made just as secure as any Linux. It does take a little bit more work involved. That does not mean, however, that Linux is immune to viruses. It is not, but in the end, because Windows has been around longer, it's more popular, at least on desktops, it's going to be attacked more. That's just the way it is, but I will definitely give the edge to Linux. As for now, at least, it is more secure. Hardware compatibility and drivers. Spatry gave the edge to Linux. Oh, Spatry, how art thou? Do you really want me to talk about video drivers, tested video drivers? I don't think you want me to go there. Let's just say that me and video drivers, at least on my current desktop, do not get along. The default open source drivers are fine. I do not do 3D gaming. Again, on my current system, your mileage may vary on what you have. You may have better luck, and that's cool. But I plugged in my son's Android phone. He has Jelly Bean, I think. Didn't work. I had to boot into Windows 7, which is fine. I enjoy using both, and it booted right up. I've had previous issues with printer drivers. Didn't work. Now, look, I'm not here to blame Linux or the vendors or both. I'm just making a statement of fact, at least from my experience, when it comes to drivers in general. Windows compared to Linux, I have to go with Windows based as I see it. So I will award 1 point to Windows. So right now it's a tie. 1 for Linux, 1 for Windows. Stability. Well, this is good and bad on each OS depending how you see it. One bug in Linux can boink your system. One piece of malware in Windows can boink your system. So which is more stable? That depends on your point of view. If we were to talk about drivers, obviously drivers that have been more tested, I'd have to go with Windows. But you know, this can be a plus or a minus depending on your point of view. So this is a tie. So I will award 0 to Windows and 0 to Linux. The GNU public license. You know, the ability to freely download Linux, either with or without a donation, to distribute, to give credit where credit is due, based on the license. Yeah, I think that's a plus. It comes down to freedom. I will give the edge to Linux, but the price of freedom is a lack of a standardized quality set of controls for all Linux. It's non-existent, but it's nice to have the freedom. That being said, I will give the edge to Linux. Updates, which operating system is easier to do updates? I think Windows is easy. Linux is easy too. I think it's faster to download updates in Linux. Spatry talked more about this, and it does make sense. As far as the updates go, yeah, I would probably give, not probably, I will give the updating convenience factor to Linux. Customization. Yeah, there's no question. Linux is more customizable than Windows. You have different desktop environments, and I think it's cool. Maintenance. Well, again, if something breaks in Linux because of a, bug, you have to maintain it, meaning you have to go in to fix it or remove it. With Windows, if there's a bug, or I'm sorry, a piece of malware, you have to go in and maintain it and remove it. This can be a plus or a minus depending in your point of view. I don't think either one has the edge, because the number one issue I have with Linux is bugs, and the number one issue with Windows is malware. Even though I have not been affected by malware, it can happen, and I have to call it as I see it. But I won't give a point to either one for the maintenance issue at this point. All right, quality apps. There are a lot of freebie apps on my Android phone, a lot of freebie apps in Linux, and from my experience, most of them are junk. I'm just going to say it call it as I see it. There is more quality software in Windows, less free quality software, stuff that you have to pay for. But in terms of the entire universe of so-called apps or quality apps, I have to give the edge to Windows, although Linux has some very, very fine free quality apps that can be just as good as any Linux piece of software. Okay, there was talk about gaming. I use my 360 for gaming. I do some gaming on PC, not a lot, but from what the community has been telling me, for what I've seen, Windows right now blows away Linux for any kind of high-tech quality or high-tech graphic, at least high-tech graphic quality games. That's going to change, I think, with the Steam client. There's no question that the future of gaming, Linux has a very bright future when it comes to gaming. But right now, from what I've seen, you want a top gaming PC, you have to go with Windows, or at least Windows 7. I'm sure Windows 8 would be fine, but I prefer Windows 7. Let me just end this with the whole packaging in general between all of Linux and all of Windows, okay? Well, there aren't that many Windows distributions or Windows OSs out there, obviously. Linux is a terrific, great alternative, to Windows. I mean, you can log into or boot into the, bring up here the Ubuntu Software Center. That there's a lot of free stuff, some paid stuff, and it's easier to search for software using something like this. So Linux is getting easier to use, especially with distributions like what you see here, the Ubuntu 12.04. I also use Linux Mint, the Mate edition. Zorn OS 7, just did an upload on that. Check it out. Zorn OS, it looks like Windows. It's not, but if you see something that makes you feel comfortable, you'll probably stick with it. But yeah, I mean, Linux is getting better and better, but the lack of a standardization of quality for all Linux, it's just not there. I guess that's why I'm here, and Spatry's here to direct a new user to the specific quality distributions. And out of the hundreds or thousands, there's maybe a handful that really can compete, and in some ways better than Windows. But overall, I have to give the edge to Windows in the overall quality factor. Quality factor, okay? Not, freedom factor or the maintenance factor or whatever you see, but the overall quality factor right now. If I didn't have Windows 7 as my backup, I couldn't use Linux. An example I gave you was, my son's Android phone. Plugged it in, you know, and I really didn't want to have to search for a tweaking or downloading a special app or tweaking this in the command line. That's just a pain in the butt, you know. And most Windows users, probably most Linux newbies, don't want to use the command line. I don't unless I have to. So, but overall, Linux in general, specific Linux OSs are fantastic, and they can compete very well with any Windows. But you know, right now, if I have to give the edge, I have to give it to Windows 7 because there are things in Windows 7 that Linux just can't do. Uh, so I tallied the score here, and to be quite honest, I have a tie. All things considered, I have a tie. But Linux is getting better. In some ways, Windows, at least Windows 7, does top Linux because everything, how can I explain this? At least with Windows 7, everything just works more of the time than Linux software just works. If that makes any sense, I hope that does. But yes, Linux is getting better and better. In my opinion, it's not quite there yet, but it's getting better. And who knows in the next couple of years what's going to happen. Windows 8 on the desktop as it is, you know, some of you love it, which is great. It's okay. I didn't upgrade. I prefer Windows 7, but you can still work. You know, you can still work with Windows 7. I didn't care for Windows 8 on a desktop. Anyway, that is my video response. Can't really, you know, trounce on Linux because I use it more than I use Windows 7 now. But I have to say, as I said, if I didn't have a Windows 7, you know, PC, I couldn't use Linux because I would have no backup. And Windows 7 is my backup for when I need it, for when things break in Linux, and they do tend to break more than in Windows. But distributions like Ubuntu, Linux Mint, Zorin, and some more are terrific. All right, I hope that's a fair rebuttal to this. I don't know what else to say. I still believe Windows 7 is the quality standard. Some of you are going to trounce me on that, and that's okay. I will accept negative comments, no profanity, but I call it as I see it, and I hope this helps you guys out. So thank you so much for watching and listening. Thank you, Spatry, for the great work that you do to the community, to both, and being respectful to both Linux and Windows users. Okay, I've been rambling on and on. Sorry about that. I think I covered most of it. Leave your comments below, and I will catch you guys later. Thank you.